Welcome to the Living Ageless and Bold podcast. Each episode, I bring you amazing women who inspire, educate, and share their experiences and journeys along the way. So grab a glass of wine or a cup of coffee, find a cozy spot, and let's relax and have some fun hearing what can be accomplished after 55. Hey, everybody. So I'm so excited about today's guest because it takes my career full circle. I had my very first local television interview ever with Laura Evans-Manitas. And today she is my guest. And I'm so excited to share her storied career in media and journalism and why she left and what she's doing now, which is making such an impact in the world. So welcome, Laura. I'm so glad you're here.
I am so glad to be with you, Christina. I love seeing you. I'm so happy to see you doing this podcast.
We've come a long way, baby.
We have, girl. We have.
So, I started this podcast and it was really geared towards women over 55. And what we're finding from the demographics is that we have a lot of younger women listening. And I think they're looking to us for mentorship and guidance. So I want to talk about, first of all, how you got into media. I mean, anyone in the DC market knows you. You were here for 20 years. Is that right? 25 years in DC?
Yeah. 20 years in DC, 6 years outside of DC. Yeah.
Yeah. So you were a staple in DC. Mm-hmm. But for those, younger women who, they ask me a lot, how do I get into this? How do I do it? How did you start and how did you end up in the anchor chair for as long as you did?
Yeah. Well, it was a dream when I was in seventh grade. Literally, I can go back to that and say, that's when I really decided that's what I wanted to do. And I put everything into it from, doing internships in college. I was writing letters in high school. Hey, can I come be, at that time you could do a summer internship without being paid or without getting credits. So I did everything that I could just to network and build those relationships and then kept those relationships, writing letters, keeping, a fresh relationship with all of the people that I met along the way. And then it was starting in small markets. My first market was Eureka, California, which is market 187 in the middle of a cow field. And I was, working for the NBC affiliate, anchoring and producing and shooting my own stuff. I was a one woman band. And I worked there for a year, and then I went to Santa Barbara and worked for the ABC affiliate and then slowly moved up. But it's, you have to pay your dues, whether you're, and the industry is different now. There are people who can get in as an intern and then work their way up, but you've got to be hungry. You've got to show that you have something special. When I was trying to get in, and I'm sure the numbers are bigger now, 100 people for every one position that comes open. Wow. And how are you different? So it was a lot of perseverance, a lot of, I will not take no for an answer, a lot of knocking on doors that were closing in my face, and I would find another door that was open, a lot of traveling, getting in my car and driving to a station, dropping my tape off at the time, we had the physical tapes. Now you have your link, but saying, hey, will you meet with me for 5 minutes and just give me that time, but being very bold about what I wanted and very clear about what I wanted and where I wanted to go. So landed my first job, like I said, in Eureka, and then slowly moved my way up and got the call from DC, thought I would be here for 3 years, married a lobbyist, and here I am.
Wow. It's so good you tell that story. I had the pleasure of interviewing Hoda Kotb several years ago for Something Through Virginia Tech. And she tells the exact story you just told. She thought she had it made. She's like, I went to Roanoke and they basically slammed the door in my face. So then I went to Richmond and they slammed the door in my face. And she talks about her whole trip down south. And I think she got 32 no's. And the one guy who gave her a shot was because somebody was sick. Yeah. And he said, if you can fit in that jacket, I'll put you on tonight. And she was awful. And then the lady was still sick. They're the anchor. So he gave her another shot and she got better and better. And look where she is now. Look where you ended. I mean, 20 years. So and nothing changes. If you have to be hungry, if you want something
You do. And you have to be willing to make zero money in the beginning. I mean, I was literally my first job, I was making $5 an hour. So, but I was I was that hungry to do this work and knowing that you got to pay your dues. And I do think that this next generation is a little bit, maybe not confused, but just you think the payoff's going to come sooner. And that's what I talk to my kids about is just, you really have to work hard to pay your dues to get that, nugget later on.
My husband, Steve, who gave me a plaque that I keep on my desk when I first started, and it says overnight success takes 15 years.
Yes. Yes.
And true. But you had an interesting career because media, like you said, you worked really hard, then you finally get the coveted anchor spot. But then as time went on, budgets were being cut and media changed, and you were in a position, right, where you're kind of writing, editing, doing everything that we're used to have a whole team. So it's changed a lot.
So, I will say, fortunately for me, it didn't change. I left before that change really happened. I was in the anchor chair. I was writing, yes, but that was, I wanted to continue to write. I wanted to continue to report. And I think, I don't think that there's any anchor that just sits by and doesn't take part in writing. But there are more of the multimedia journalists who are out shooting their own things right now. And I never had to do that, fortunately. It's a tough industry now for multimedia journalists. You are, working to the bone and burning the candle at both ends. And for me, I got to a point where it soured for me when I realized how on repeat we were talking about all the things that bring us down as a community. And it just got to a point that it was making me not feel good. And I knew that it was not doing a good service. I was not paying a good service to our world and our community. And I think that kind of started when I had kids, and I was realizing, how is this impacting my kids? I was also doing more community service with the emceeing and working on behalf of a lot of charity organizations. And that's where I felt my best. Like, how are we changing our world? Not, let's tell you about the day's shooting. Let's tell you about the crime and the murder and mayhem that's happened here. But, how are we uplifting our community? And that wasn't going on in the newsroom. It was all like focus on what's the worst of the worst, not the best of the best. And that started to eat at me.
Why do you think that is? And I feel like it's getting worse. Like in my house, my husband's like, turn off the TV. I said, well, I kind of have to know what's happening in the world for what I do. But I feel like there's no good news on at all anymore.
Yeah. I mean, if you do your research, and I don't have the data right off the top of my head, but we have a human default to the shocking, to the, what's the most outrageous, extraordinarily, fearful thing that's happening in our community. And that is a default that causes us to tune in and then share and click. And, we talk about clickbait, and TV stations, they know what they're doing. Right. And newsrooms know what they're doing. We know what's sexy. We know what will sell. We know what is going to be shocking enough. I can't stand the word shocking because it's overused in teases and promotions. What is going to get the attention of the audience for today to tune into my station versus the other station? Shocking news coming out of, the weather center, tornadoes possible for tonight. We know tornadoes are not possible, but, or
always
it's possible, but not probable. 0.1% chance of happening. Well, that's possible. So let's put it on. And that's where it becomes infuriating because we're instilling fear instead of, what's real. Now, what's real probably isn't going to sell, and it's not going to get you to watch my TV station, but there's a happy medium here, and let's get creative and not lazy. And that's what I couldn't be a part of it anymore.
Right. And so you left. You left a story, like I said, a storied career. Everybody watched you. You were the evening news anchor.
Thank you.
So that had to be a really difficult decision to finally do it.
It was hard. It was really hard. I left without a parachute, and the major support of my amazing husband and family. And I didn't know what I was going to do. And I had gone to my general manager, who was very supportive of me. And, I said, I can't do this. And they wanted to actually to move me to an evening shift, and they were building up their nightside lineup. And it was going to take me to this. They would move my shift to coming in at 3:00, which was right when my kids got off the bus at 3:00, and working in the evening. And that meant reporting on more of the same death and destruction that was eating at me. And I said to him, I can't do this, and I'm going to leave. And he said, okay. And I said, like you're going to accept this? But that was what I wanted. And I wasn't prepared to have him give me the green light, but that's what I needed. And so it was really, really scary. And it's funny. I think I've told you this story, but my daughter, my very, very wise 9-year-old daughter at the time, I said, to her, this makes me nervous, and I'm kind of, because I was crying about it, and she said, well, Mommy, I'm so proud of you, and she goes, you made your dream come true, and now you can do something else. And I was like, oh,
out of the mouths of babes,
because we had talked about how this was a dream job, and I made my dream come true. And she said, and now you can do something else. Check. It's like so simple. You're right. I can do something else.
I love it.
So yeah, it was moving on to what's next.
But then you were able to take all of that experience and now you're able to change the world. So let's talk about, because I think you're just doing so much amazing work.
Thank you, Christina. Well, I remember calling you and saying, and that's what this is all about too, right? And leaning on friends and leaning on your community, because how do you make that transition? And that was one thing that my husband said to me. He's like, meet with everybody, just have coffees, like just figure out what it is you wanted to do next, want to do next, because I didn't know. And the light went off for me when I realized I want to focus on solutions, on what is making our world a better place, not what's bringing us down. And I remember I was sitting in this room, and it dawned on me like a ton of bricks. And it was when I was able to put words to it that people started to call. And I had this amazing organization, Lazarex Cancer Foundation. The woman who started it, who is just a visionary and a doer, she said, hey, we've been around for a long time. Nobody knows who we are. Can you help us tell our story? And that was the kind of story that I loved telling when I was at Channel 5. And she was my first client. And so from there, I had different organizations that reached out to me, and then my team started to build. I have now a team of 15 for all former journalists, all feel the same as I did. They left for the same reasons. And we know how to tell stories, and we love telling stories, and we know what sells in news. And we know journalists who are wanting to tell these stories. So it's a nice fit, and it feels good for us. And I think it really also, I think, is helping kind of solve some of the issues that journalists are facing, which is they don't have the resources to kind of put these pieces of these good stories together. And so hopefully, I feel like we're making a little bit of a difference.
Oh my gosh. Well, I don't want to tell too much about Dana and Lazarex, because she is going to be a guest, and because I think she is amazing. And thank goodness for you, because we needed help with a cancer diagnosis in our family, and Lazarex, the work that they do is incredible. Tell us about some other amazing people that you've worked with, because I think we could all use feel-good stories.
Yeah. So let's see. Working with the Soulbox Project, which is an organization that helps bring awareness to, and not that you need awareness, but really brings to life the impact of the gun violence situation in our country, the epidemic. And woman Leslie Lee out of Oregon, she, after hearing about the Las Vegas shooting, the massive shooting at the Mandalay Bay hotel, she started folding origami boxes, which hold space for the souls of those impacted by gun violence. And they're decorated beautifully by loved ones, and they're folded mindfully as, people think about the people who are impacted. And then you put together these panels of these soul boxes that are just beautiful. And it's heartbreaking, and it's, peace of mind that these legacies will live on. But it brings a visual impact that is personal. So that's been really a labor of love, and we've loved working with Leslie and the Soulbox Project. We work with Volunteers of America, who works on homeless issues, addiction, moral injury, helping with first responders, getting them the help that they need, veterans, getting them the help that they need. We work with Virginia Spine Institute. We work with Inova Health Systems. Oh my gosh, we work with so many different organizations. I'm going to forget them all, but they're just Aaliyah in action, a woman who she had a stillbirth, and she's now helping other families who are going through stillbirth and are need resources. And she's just, these are visionary people who have pulled themselves up by the bootstraps, found solutions, and they are working to help others get the help that they need. And like you said, to make the world a better place. There are so many. Lever for Change, another organization that is like helping solve the world's biggest problems through facilitating big donors with these unheralded organizations. I could go on.
Oh, no, I love it. I love doing this podcast, because what I have found is women like you had this amazing career, and it's your second chapter, which we're so young and we can still do this. But what I have found week after week is what we're doing later in life has purpose. Yes. Everything and what you're doing, and your passion shines through. You just light up when you started talking about these clients, that we sleep better, we're happier, we're making the world a better place.
Yeah. And I think it's like what you're doing with this podcast. It's also inspiring, or showing the way to other people, to the younger generations, of how you can reinvent yourself. That it's not what do you want to be when you grow up. It's how are you going to continue to evolve and work in the community, for the community, not just in your own little box. So I think that's important, that we all continue to think outwardly, as, for the good of our world.
I speak at Virginia Tech a lot. I teach careers in marketing. And when I tell them my story, I graduated with a double major in political science and German. And then they hear everything I've done and where I am now. And they're like, wait a minute. I said, you guys, it's a piece of paper from, in May, you get this piece of paper and it's going to help you get your first job. Right. After that, unless you're a doctor or a lawyer, something you're going to advanced schooling for, but your general business, marketing, those kinds of jobs, you can do anything you want to do.
Exactly.
And you're not limited. And you are the perfect example of that.
So funny you say that, Christina. I don't think we've ever talked about that, because my majors were American Studies and Spanish. And I always talk to college students about how it doesn't matter what you major in. Major in something that you are passionate about, that you're interested in learning. Maybe you're not passionate about it, but you just are interested in learning about it. But yeah. And then you figure it out. Find what interests you now. But it's not the end of the road.
No,
there's so much pressure.
Oh, the pressure's terrible. But I think about, I had a degree, I owned a retail store for 10 years, which was fantastic. And then I got burned out and was like, I'll stay home with my kids. And then I invented a product. That's how we met.
Yeah.
And, that was fun. And I tell this story all the time. You obviously will remember it, but we connected on Twitter, which I don't do a lot on, and I'm never up late. And you had done What was your segment called? The next big thing, the next great thing?
Yeah, the next great thing.
The next great thing. And it was the Dollar Shave Club.
Yeah.
And it was so good. And I just was like, I'm going to tweet her and tell her that how much I enjoyed that. So I sent a tweet and you replied and you said, oh, thank you. And if you know of other products that would fit this, let me know. And that's how this whole thing started.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
I remember.
And all the media put the product on the map. And now, with your help, because many phone calls to you too, I'm like regularly doing lifestyle segments, which I love, and trying to really build this brand for women over 55, which is the kind of the next step after this. Like, what is our lifestyle brand?
Yeah.
But it's all you learn as you go and pivoting,
right.
Changing.
Right. The pieces fit together. And, you may have had a thought of like, this is kind of a direction I want to go in. And we have to listen to those voices too. It may not have been a perfectly planned out path that I want to go down. I want to, work in PR, or I want to, help other women, or I want to do a podcast. But it's that, inner voice that tells us, to take an action. That action leads to something else, a relationship, that helps us, get down to this next step. And it's so amazing to me how when we put it out there, when we listen to ourselves, when we listen to universe, it just works out.
It is. But you have to listen. And that's what I tell people too. And, when the door closes, and I tell this story too, I was supposed to be on Shark Tank with my medical boot. And I had gotten through quite a bit. So you send a video in, you do back then it was a 30-page application, and you send a video in, and the producers called. They're like, Christina, we love you. We love your energy. We want to have you on. I'm like, okay, but you have to go through the process. So then they send me, ABC or whoever they were, Shark Tank, check. And then you go to Mark Burnett. And I was joking. I'm like, Mark Burnett loved me. Well, his team said, yes, you're in. And then it went to ABC Sony, and there had been a product in season 1. This was season 2 that was for cowboy boots. And they just thought that, they had just started. Now Shark Tank, I don't know how many seasons that they have, but I was devastated when they called to tell me that I had my outfit picked out. We moved our vacation around the dates that they gave me. It was a done deal. So I cried for an entire weekend, and through my tears, and I remember my kids had friends over. I'm like, but I know there's something else. Like, I just have to get through this, because it was crushing. And then I ended up on Steve Harvey and won his top inventor competition.
That's right.
Yeah. And won $20,000 that I didn't have to split with anybody. And so you've got to pay attention to those things and don't, like I said, I cried for a whole weekend. So that's okay. And you cried when you left Fox. Like, that's okay. But then what's next? Like, be open to possibility.
Yes. That's amazing advice. It's so true. It's being open to possibility. Have your pity party, and then you move on.
And then move on. And you do a lot of charitable work. I know you do a lot with Make-A-Wish, which has to be really, really fulfilling as well.
That's how my husband and I met. So it's a family affair.
That's right. All your kids come and do that, which is amazing.
Yeah.
So what's next? You're 15, and I didn't realize you have 15 people.
Yeah.
So you've got a lot of stories that you're telling, which is incredible.
Yeah. I worked with a business coach at the very beginning of this, and she said to me, where are you going with this? And I said, I don't know. And she said, well, if I'm on your ship and you're the captain of the ship, I'm not sure I want to be on your ship, because you're steering it in a direction I don't. And I said, I stick to, I don't know, because I don't want to be, I want to be really broad in my thinking. I don't want to be linear. And I think I can have goals, financially. I can have goals on how I want to have culture in my within my team. I want to have goals on how my lifestyle is with balance, and how I am as a mom, how I am as a wife, how I show up in my family, how I show up for my team. But I don't know how big I want to grow. I just know the feeling is if it becomes too outrageously large and the balance starts to tip, then that's where I say, okay, enough. Or I bring in someone else. And that, because I never thought that I would be at 15 people.
Right.
And we've just, we've added people along the way, and it's worked. So look, if we're at 30 in 2 more years and it's still working and I've still got balance and I can show up and be present for my kids, awesome.
Right.
But I don't want, I don't know what's next. I'm just, when we got a call from Nats, from an organization that was doing the Nats parade, Hargrove. And it was the night before they were about to win the World Series. It was game 7. It was like the last inning. And they called me and they said, hey, if we win this, would you do all the media for the parade? Would Laura Evans Media handle all the media for the parade? I was like, and I said, okay. But I'm like, I don't know what the F I'm doing.
Right.
And I called my partner, Jenny Davis, and I said, Jenny, what do you think? She goes, oh, hell yeah, we can do this. I'm like, oh yeah, hell yeah, we can do this. So we're in. So we did it. We did. We coordinated all the media for the parade. They call us, months later to do the Democratic National Convention. So, I mean, it was like, yes, we can. If we don't know it, we'll Google it, but we know what we're doing.
But that's a confidence, I think, that comes with age. And that's something that, and my daughter is 23, and I'm trying to instill this confidence in her. Like, it's okay to ask questions. It's okay to say to your boss, hey, I think I'm doing a really good job. It's okay, but that takes time to be like, of course I can do this. I'll figure it out. I wouldn't say no either. I'd be like, yeah, heck yeah, we're doing this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, right, I love it. Right.
So it's all an adventure, right?
It is. Do you have any regrets leaving television?
I don't. In the beginning, it was hard because, you're on the front seat of history every event. But we're still, with all of the clients that we're working with all the events that we're doing, I still feel like I've got a front seat to some of the history without having to go through the tough stuff of the, and I tend to tune out from a lot of the news. I have to be honest.
Me too.
But
it's hard.
No, I don't miss the newsroom culture. I don't miss the hours. I don't miss the having to be on call 24/7. And, I am loving being, a business owner, and loving being a mom, loving being able to work with a team of kick-ass women who are, many of whom are moms and multitaskers, and get it done on deadline. Like, we work so efficiently and so fast, and it's awesome. So
your team is all women.
It's all women. We have 2 guys. One's a photographer, the videographer, that somebody who I used to work with at Channel 5, and then an editor who also used to work at Channel 5 too. So, yeah. There's
I have a client who's a big real estate agent, and their whole team, it's 10 moms. And it's like, okay, I'm going to go show this house. You're going to pick up at the elementary school. You're going to, take the kids to this. And women and I did that when I owned the store. I owned it with my best friend, and we had 3 kids between us. And it was like, ooh, I've got a tea after school. All right, well, I've got this. I'll pick them up. We, shared after school care. And yeah, women make it work.
You do. Women make it work for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
All right. Before we wrap up, I do want to ask you, what is your favorite story memory from when you were in the news? Like, who did you interview?
I mean, the biggest interview, I will say, and this is not political. It's going to be political, but it's not. I loved interviewing. He was vice president at the time, Vice President Biden. He's just a good guy, just a really good guy. Favorite story was flying with the Blue Angels.
Oh, cool.
That was the coolest ever.
Did you get sick? Like, did they?
I filled 2 bags.
Oh no.
Yes, but I mean, it was
Loved
it was the most incredible experience. But really, honestly, like the best stories were those where I could interview people who were pulling themselves up by the bootstraps and helping other people and were sharing their deepest stories with me and trusted me. And that, I mean, it gives me chills. That is what, that's what filled my soul. And really, at the end of the day, I went home and I would be like, honey, let me tell you about this story. And, the other stuff just didn't really matter.
That's why you're doing what you're doing now.
Yeah.
Because it fills your soul.
Yeah.
Okay. We always ask the same 2 questions at the end of every interview. What is your greatest accomplishment since you've turned 50?
My greatest accomplishment since turning 50 is starting this company. Yeah. And really pulling together a group of people who are just phenomenally capable, efficient, good people who work together well. And I'm so proud of that.
I love it.
Yeah.
And then where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Doing the same thing, but maybe not multitasking as much as I am now as mom.
Yeah.
Hopefully, taking a few more vacations and not filling out college applications like I am now.
It goes fast. So
I know, and I'm cherishing every moment, every moment. Yeah.
Oh, good. Well, Laura, thank you so much. It was so great to have you with us today.
Oh, thank you so much, Christina. And it's such an honor to be on with you. And I'm so proud of you for all that you've done. Really excited to see you in action.
Thank you.